Here's an oversimplified lure selection guide for you to follow. Clear water, natural color baits. Stained water, bold colored baits, black baits. Dark chocolate colored water, some of the same. Deep waters, black, blues, purples, they all work excellently. But how much does color really matter, and when do you use it? By the end of this video, you should feel a little bit more confident about the bait color choices that you're making, and that should hopefully put a few more fish in your boat. And by the way, my name's Ben, I'm a paddlehead. When you're using hard baits and plastics, you're typically trying to get a reaction bite out of the fish, or you're trying to entice it to eat. While fish are very visual hunters and ambushers, they typically use other senses as well to kind of detect that at first. Color can be a bit of a last-minute decision whether or not they're going to actually bite it, so it's not the first thing that you should really focus on, but color does kind of increase your chances of getting that bite in those last final moments. So it is worth trying to learn some color theory just so you can increase your chances, because as anglers, that's what it's about. Increase your chances of catching fish. My uncle used to fish a body of water all the time with his friends, and they would always be using a Mepps spinner. And his buddies would always be saying, hey, yeah, you want to throw the bait with the orange dots. So he kept throwing the bait with the orange dots, and they kept out fishing him constantly. So they decided to take a look at his fishing bait, and they said, well, what are you using? He says, well, I'm using the Mepps with the orange dots. And they took a look at his bait, and he was using the Mepps with the yellow dots. And that's when he found out that he was colorblind. So moral of the story is get your eyes checked, and having the wrong color doesn't mean you're not gonna get bit, you just might get bit a little bit less. Anyways, Mepps spinner, I highly recommend that bait. Just to be clear, we are talking about hard baits and soft plastics here, not fly fishing. Flies can be a whole different story, and that's when you really wanna learn techniques like match the hatch. Let's also be clear that this is just theory. This is not cold hard fact. This is just from our experience and the research that we've done and the stories that we've heard. And we're not gonna get too much into the weeds here. At the end of this video, I'll share some tips with you on how you can plan ahead with your bait color selection choices when you're making your camping plans. And the main thing we're gonna focus on is light penetration. How easy is it to see inside the water? And as you know, light can only go so far underneath the water. So as you go deeper underwater, it gets darker and darker and darker. And of course, muddy water, dirty water, tea-stained water, that'll also change light visibility too. And all of this can change what your lure selection color is. Once you start getting more detailed about the bodies of water you fish, you can get a little bit more into the weeds about what colors are matching the local forage in the lake, trying to match the hatch, that kind of stuff. But it's good just to have a base primary starting point when you're making your color selection. And this is where you should start. So we're gonna start with clear water. Clear water obviously allows the most light penetration, so it's a little bit easier to see a lot of your baits. Some people do believe though that if your baits are a little bit more flashy or a little bit too bold in colors, it can kind of spook fish away. So when you're fishing in clear water lakes, it's recommended that you use like natural colored baits, baits that actually look like bait fish, or even, just natural colors, kind of like earthy tones or, does that sink? I thought that floated more. I just bought that, that's a husky jerk. Anyways, natural colors like greens and browns and whites and blacks do really well in shallower, clear water. Those will work great, but also chrome lures and translucent lures can also be considered natural too, because chrome, some minnows put off a good flash when they flicker in the water, and some fish are actually translucent, but also the translucent nature just kind of allows it to look a little bit more natural, like its surroundings. It's kind of like invisibility. As you go deeper in the water, you're gonna wanna go darker in color. So colors like black and blue and purple work really well in deep water. This is kind of translucent purple, but I mean like dark purple baits work really well. You may have heard of people fishing with big dark purple worms deep water. That's because they can be seen easier at those depths. As you go deeper in the water, the first thing to disappear are colors. So you're gonna lose colors like reds and browns first, and yellows. They're gonna start disappearing in the 15 to 20 foot, 30 foot range. Whereas colors like blues and purples are still good up to like 70 feet to 100 feet deep. They can still be seen in those depths. There's actually a really cool article that I'll link below that talks about lure visibility in the Great Lakes and in clear water, and some of the science behind that. So check that out if you want some more details on that. And also in deep water, black can do really well too, because it kind of creates a silhouette because it's darker than dark. You know, it kind of stands out and contrasts with the background. Something really black like this. Now this is a little bit crazy, of course, this is for musky fishing, but a black bait down deep can really help you out. Tea-stained waters. or like waters with floaty bits in them. Visibility can be reduced a little bit by things like algae and tannins in the water. Tannins are like something that like leaches out of wood. I don't know. This isn't a science show. Anyways, so stained water though, usually looks a little bit more stained than this, and this is literally tea. And the further that the bait is away from you, the more obstruction you're gonna get, and the less you're gonna see the bait at a distance. So in these kind of situations, you're gonna work a little bit harder to get the fish's attention. You might wanna use some more bold colors like reds and chartreuse in these kind of waters, or even like pinks and bright, just bold colors. And once again, blacks also do well too, because it just helps create that silhouette. Something else you can do is try and get something with a little bit more flash on it, like, you know, a spoon or even like a spinner bait. Those blades will kind of spin and show off some of the light, or spread more light and hopefully get more attention that way. And of course, as it gets darker and as it gets deeper, it's gonna get harder and harder to see baits. So you're gonna have to rely more and more on vibration and scent as well, something else that you can get from plastic baits. And lastly, like muddy, stained kind of waters. Waters that are like sometimes called chocolate milk kind of waters. Like if you're fishing in waters like this, you're really gonna wanna just rely on vibration and scent, because you're not gonna see too much, but dark colors do help, and bold colors, again, it's kind of just like a more extreme version of stained waters. You're gonna want to use things that are darker in color, and that stand out. What are some of your favorite colors? Let us know in the comments below. Go ahead. Before you do your backcountry trips and when you're making your plans, look online, ask some questions, ask other trippers. Even if they're not anglers, sometimes they have a mental note of what the water's like. You can say, does this area typically have tea-stained waters? For example, many lakes in Algonquin Park, they do have tea-stained waters from the tannins in the water. Something that you can also look into is the weather forecast. What happened days leading up to the time that you're spending on the water? Was there a lot of rain? Are you on a river? Chances are if you're on a river and there's been a lot of rain, you could have like really chocolate milky kind of waters like this. So it can change from day to day depending on the body of water, and it can change from body of water to body of water. There's some very useful maps that you can find online, and I actually made a video all about those maps. They're free, and check it out here. This will tell you all about them. Catch you later. I hope you catch more fish.